Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we are diving deep into the world of cybersecurity in Nigeria, specifically what financial institutions are going up against these days. So strap in because it's a bit of a wild ride. Businesses in Nigeria face an average of 3,759 cyber attacks every single week.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a pretty alarming statistic right off the bat.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a battlefield out there for sure. And it's not just random attacks either. The financial sector, think about it, they're holding vast amounts of data and money, making them a very attractive target for cyber criminals.
What are the big bad wolves in this digital forest?
Right.
We all hear about ransomware. Is that still a major player?
Ransomware is unfortunately alive and well, and it's evolving. The 2024 Interpol Africa Cyber Threat Assessment Report pointed to ransomware, especially those targeting critical infrastructure, as one of the fastest growing cyber threats across the continent.
Are there any other types of attacks on the rise in Nigeria?
Oh, yeah.
I know we've been hearing a lot about AI-powered attacks globally.
Absolutely. The Cybersecurity Experts Association of Nigeria, CISION, highlighted AI-powered threats, misinformation campaigns, and cryptocurrency scams in their 2025 threat report. And on the AI front, it's like a constant arms race. What used to be a manual process for hackers can now be automated and scaled up with AI. We're talking about creating malware that can learn and adapt, making it much harder to detect and defend against.
So imagine a malware program that's constantly evolving, learning from every attack that it launches. It's a chilling thought.
Yeah.
What about those simpler, almost old-school attacks like business email compromise? Are those still effective?
Surprisingly, yes. Interpol's report highlighted that business email compromise scams and other online scams are actually on the rise. Criminals are getting more sophisticated with their social engineering tactics, preying on human vulnerabilities.
Right.
They often do their research, impersonating trusted individuals or organizations to trick people into revealing sensitive information or transferring funds.
It's a reminder that security isn't just about fancy tech, it's about human behavior as well.
Absolutely.
You can have the strongest firewall in the world, but if someone clicks on a malicious link, it can all be for nothing.
Yeah, for sure.
With all these threats looming large, are financial institutions in Nigeria equipped to handle them? I mean, are they ready for this cyber onslaught?
That's the millionaire question, isn't it? A study by Dr. Tambari Saiba and Professor Christian Connert at the University of South Wales, alongside that Interpol report we mentioned, painted a rather concerning picture. It highlighted a worrying trend of low cybersecurity readiness in Nigeria, making it clear that there are significant challenges when it comes to preventing, detecting, investigating, and disrupting cybercrime effectively. And this lack of preparedness isn't just a hypothetical problem.
You're right. The Nigerian Communications Commission reported over $500 million lost to cybercrime in 2022 alone. And with these increasingly sophisticated attacks, one can only imagine that number is skyrocketing.
It's a substantial burden both financially and in terms of eroding trust in digital systems.
Yeah.
Clearly, a significant boost in cybersecurity readiness is urgently needed. This brings us to a potential solution we've been hearing about, a cybersecurity solution called Abatis, developed by Platinum High Integrity Technologies. It claims to take a more proactive approach.
Okay, proactive sounds promising, especially compared to the usual wait-and-see approach to security. But I'm curious, what does that actually mean in practice?
Right.
How does Abatis work?
Abatis focuses on prevention rather than reaction, which is a fundamental shift from traditional security models. It acts as a gatekeeper at the very core of your system, a kernel-level driver that intercepts and mediates file write access to the computer's permanent storage. Basically, it stops malware from being written to your hard drive or any connected storage.
So even if an employee falls for a sophisticated phishing scam and clicks on a malicious link, Abatis would prevent that malware from actually infecting the system.
Exactly. Think of it as an impenetrable shield protecting your system's core. Whether it's known malware, a zero-day attack exploiting a vulnerability that's not even publicly known yet, or even someone trying to tamper with the operating system, Abatis blocks it at the file system level.
That's a pretty bold claim.
Yeah.
But how does it handle those AI-powered attacks that seem to be designed to slip past traditional defenses?
Yeah.
And what about insider threats, those rogue employees who might have legitimate access to sensitive systems.
That's where it gets really interesting. Abatis prevents any unauthorized changes to the operating system, regardless of where they're coming from.
Wow.
So even if an AI identifies a vulnerability, it can't exploit it because it can't write the malicious code to the system. It's like locking down a building so tightly that even if someone finds a crack in the wall, they still can't get in.
So Abatis basically says, nope, not happening to any unauthorized changes, regardless of the source.
Right.
What about those insider threats?
Abatis can be configured to restrict access to common system tools, the ones often used in what are called living off the land attacks. These are attacks where hackers use legitimate system tools for malicious purposes. It operates at a higher privilege level than even the system administrator, preventing modifications, whether intentional or accidental, even from someone with admin rights.
So it's like having a system of checks and balances, ensuring that no one, not even the IT admin, can single-handedly compromise the system.
Right.
That's a pretty impressive level of control.
It is.
But I'm also interested in the bigger picture.
Okay.
We hear a lot about cyber sovereignty these days. How does Abatis fit into that concept, especially in the context of Nigeria?
That's a great point. Cyber sovereignty is essentially a nation's ability to control its own digital destiny. It's about protecting critical infrastructure and data from external threats and influences. And this is where Abatis gets interesting. It's not just a foreign solution being imposed on Nigeria. Abatis Technology Nigeria Ltd. is a franchise partner of the Swiss company, meaning it's locally sourced and tailored to the specific needs and challenges of the country.
So it's like having a security system designed by people who understand the local landscape, the unique threats, and the regulatory environment.
Yeah.
That has to be reassuring for organizations in Nigeria.
Definitely.
But having a local presence is just one piece of the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about how Abatis actually tackles those specific threats we discussed earlier, starting with those living off the land, or LOTL attacks.
You got it. Abatis tackles those LOTL attacks head on. Remember those common system tools we discussed? The ones hackers love to exploit. Abatis essentially neuters them, preventing unauthorized users from wielding them for malicious purposes. It's like taking away a burglar's tools before they can even break in.
So Abatis is basically saying, you want to use PowerShell for evil? Nope, not on my watch. Pretty effective.
It is.
What about those zero-day attacks, the ones that exploit vulnerabilities we don't even know about yet? That seems like a much tougher challenge.
Zero-day attacks are tricky, no doubt. But that's where Abatis' proactive approach shines.
Okay.
It's not about chasing after the latest patches or signatures. It's about preventing any unauthorized changes to the operating system, period. So even if a zero-day vulnerability exists, the attacker can't exploit it because they can't modify the system to deliver their payload.
So it's like having a force field around your system.
Uh-huh.
Even if there's a weak spot, the attacker can't get through.
Exactly. It's a fundamental shift in thinking, and it can be a game changer for organizations struggling to keep up with the ever-evolving threat landscape.
We've talked about LOTL and zero-day attacks, but let's not forget about insider threats. Yeah. Those can be the most damaging because they come from people who already have access and knowledge of the systems.
You're absolutely right. Insider threats are a nightmare scenario for any organization. But Abatis offers a unique defense here as well. Because it operates at a higher privilege level than even system administrators, it can prevent malicious or even accidental modifications from anyone, regardless of their position.
So even if a disgruntled employee decides to go rogue, Abatis is there to limit the damage they can inflict. It's like having a security guard watching over the shoulder of every user, even the ones with the highest clearance. This all sounds very impressive, but I'm curious how this translates to real-world scenarios within a financial institution.
Okay.
Let's dive into some specific use cases.
Let's do that. One common target for attackers is application servers, the backbone of any financial institution.
Right.
They're running critical banking applications, holding sensitive customer data. Abatis can be deployed on these servers to ensure that only authorized software is allowed to run. It prevents malware from compromising those systems, ensuring the integrity and availability of crucial banking services.
That's a big one. What about ATMs and other vendor appliances?
Right.
They're often running older operating systems and are notoriously difficult to patch. Are they protected by Abatis as well?
They are. You're right. ATMs and vendor appliances are a major security concern. They're often neglected when it comes to security updates, making them prime targets for attackers. But Abatis offers a lightweight security layer that's perfect for these types of systems. It doesn't bog down performance or require constant updates, making it ideal for securing these often overlooked but critical devices.
So it's like giving those old vulnerable ATMs a much-needed security upgrade without having to rip and replace them entirely.
Exactly.
That's a huge relief for banks that rely heavily on these systems.
Absolutely. And this brings us to another challenge for financial institutions' legacy systems. Many banks are still running older systems that are vital to their operations but are no longer supported by vendors.
That's a tough spot to be in.
It is.
You need these systems to function, but they're becoming increasingly vulnerable. How does Abatis address this?
Abatis can enhance the security of those legacy systems without requiring a costly and complex migration to newer platforms. It acts as a protective layer, preventing attacks from exploiting vulnerabilities in those older systems.
So it's like giving those legacy systems a new lease on life?
Yeah.
Security-wise?
It is, yeah.
That has to be a huge benefit for banks that are hesitant to upgrade or replace those mission-critical but outdated systems.
Definitely.
But we've talked a lot about prevention. What about detection and response? How does Abatis help organizations understand what's happening on their systems?
Abatis doesn't just block threats, it also logs those events in a way that's incredibly valuable for security teams. It's like having a detective's notebook filled with clues, even if you manage to stop the crime before it happened.
Okay, so Abatis is taking notes while it's blocking attacks. Tell me more about these logs.
Abatis logs are special because they only record genuine events. There are no false positives or confusing alerts to sift through. This makes it much easier for security teams to understand the nature of an attack, even if it was successfully blocked.
Right.
They can use these logs to identify patterns, track attacker behavior, and proactively strengthen their defenses.
So it's like having a security camera that not only records the break-in, but also provides a detailed profile of the intruder, even if you manage to scare them off.
You got it. It's all about empowering organizations to be more proactive and less reactive in their security approach.
This proactive approach sounds fantastic. But I'm wondering how all of this fits into the existing security infrastructure at a bank. Do they need to rip and replace their entire Security Operations Center, SOC?
Not at all. Abatis is designed to integrate seamlessly with the bank's existing SOC. It comes with a Central Management Console, or CMC, that provides a user-friendly interface for monitoring security events, managing policies, and generating those valuable reports we discussed.
So it's more about enhancing existing systems with Abatis's unique capabilities, not replacing them entirely. But I have to ask, how does all this impact the bottom line? Cybersecurity can be a costly endeavor, and banks are always looking for ways to optimize their spending.
You're right, cost is always a factor. And here's where Abatis offers a pleasant surprise. Its lightweight design translates to lower operating costs. It requires less processing power and memory, which can potentially reduce hardware requirements and energy consumption.
So Abatis is not only more secure, but also more cost-effective. Now, that's what I like to hear.
Exactly. And let's not forget about the potential savings on incident response and recovery costs. By preventing threats in the first place, Abatis can help organizations avoid the financial fallout of a successful attack.
So it's like investing in a high-quality home security system. You might spend a bit more upfront, but it could save you a fortune in the long run by preventing burglaries and losses. But I am curious about one more thing. How does Abatis fit into the regulatory landscape in Nigeria?
That's a great question to delve into next. We need to explore how a solution like Abatis can help financial institutions comply with the cybersecurity regulations and frameworks in Nigeria, particularly those established by the Central Bank of Nigeria.
That sounds like a perfect topic for the next part of our deep dive. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be back to explore the regulatory landscape and how Abatis can help financial institutions not just survive, but thrive in this challenging cybersecurity environment. Welcome back to our deep dive into Nigeria's cybersecurity landscape. Before we took a break, we were talking about Abatis and its unique approach to tackling these various cyber threats. Now let's shift gears a bit and look at the regulatory side of things.
Excellent point. No matter how great a security solution is, it needs to fit into the existing regulatory framework. In Nigeria, one of the key frameworks is the Central Bank of Nigeria's risk-based cybersecurity framework and guidelines. It's specifically designed for deposit money banks and payment service banks, aiming to strengthen their cybersecurity posture.
Right. I remember skimming through that. It's quite comprehensive, covering everything from risk assessment to incident response.
Yeah.
But how does a solution like Abatis help institutions actually meet those requirements? It's not just a checkbox, right?
Definitely not. The CBN framework stresses a risk-based approach, requiring institutions to understand their specific risks and implement controls that match those risks. Abatis shines here. By proactively preventing unauthorized changes and blocking threats at the core, it significantly reduces the attack surface and inherently mitigates a lot of those risks. It's not just about compliance, it's about building a truly resilient cybersecurity posture.
So it's like having a solid foundation for your cybersecurity house, making it much harder for those cyber burglars to break in. But let's get into specifics. What are some of the key requirements outlined in the CBN framework, and how does Abatis address those directly?
The CBN framework mandates institutions to conduct regular risk assessments, implement robust security policies, have a solid incident response plan, and ensure ongoing vulnerability management. These are core elements of a strong cybersecurity posture, and Abatis plays a significant role in each of these areas.
Okay, let's break it down. Let's start with vulnerability management. We know that even with the best programs, there's always a gap between when a vulnerability is discovered and when it's patched.
Exactly. That gap, that window of vulnerability, is what attackers drool over. It's like knowing there's a hole in your fence but not having the time to fix it before someone tries to sneak in. Abatis provides an additional layer of protection here. By preventing any unauthorized changes to the system, even if a vulnerability exists, it becomes incredibly difficult to exploit. It's like having a guard dog stationed at that hole in the fence, ready to deter any potential intruders.
I like that analogy. So even if the bad guys find a way in, they can't actually do anything because Abatis is there to stop them. But what about those times when prevention isn't enough? The CBN framework also emphasizes incident response, right? How does Abatis contribute to a bank's ability to effectively handle a security incident?
That's where those detailed Abatis logs we mentioned earlier come into play. They provide invaluable information to security teams, helping them understand what happened, even if an attack was blocked. Because the logs only record genuine events, they cut through the noise of false positives, giving a clear picture of the attack.
So it's like having a security camera that not only records the attempted break-in, but also gives you a clear shot of the intruder's face, even if they didn't manage to get inside.
Precisely. This helps incident response teams understand the tactics used, identify the source, and improve their response strategies for the future. Abatis empowers institutions to shift from a reactive stance to a proactive one, which aligns perfectly with the CBN framework's goals.
It seems like Abatis helps banks go beyond mere compliance. It helps them build a more robust and proactive security posture overall. But I'm curious, does the CBN framework specifically address the use of newer technologies? I'm thinking about things like cloud computing and AI, which are rapidly changing the financial landscape.
It does. The framework dedicates a whole section to emerging technologies, recognizing both the opportunities and risks they present. It stresses the need for careful risk assessment and appropriate security controls when adopting these new technologies. And Abatis, with its ability to provide consistent security across different platforms and operating systems, becomes even more valuable in this context.
So it's like having a universal key that unlocks security across a bank's entire IT ecosystem, whether it's on-premise, in the cloud, or a hybrid of both. That simplifies things immensely.
You got it. And this simplification is crucial in today's rapidly evolving world. It allows institutions to be more agile and adaptable without compromising security.
So Abatis helps banks embrace new technologies confidently, knowing they have a solid security foundation in place. But we can't forget about the human element, right? Even with the most advanced technology, a single careless click can still open the door to disaster.
Absolutely. The human factor is critical. And while Abatis can act as a safety net, preventing many of those accidental blunders from turning into major incidents, it doesn't replace the need for cybersecurity awareness and training.
Right. It's about building a culture of security where everyone understands their role in protecting their organization and themselves. But how does Abatis specifically help with this?
Abatis complements awareness training by minimizing the impact of human error. Remember how it blocks unauthorized changes at the system level? This means that even if someone falls for a phishing scam or downloads a malicious file, the damage is likely to be contained. It reduces the reliance on perfect human behavior, which, let's face it, is impossible to achieve.
So it's like having a guardian angel looking out for those inevitable human slip-ups. That takes a lot of pressure off security teams, allowing them to focus on more strategic initiatives.
Exactly. And when we connect this back to the bigger picture, a stronger cybersecurity posture within the financial sector has positive ripple effects throughout the entire economy. It strengthens trust in digital systems, encourages innovation, and attracts foreign investment. It's not just about protecting individual banks, it's about safeguarding the entire financial ecosystem and, by extension, the nation's well-being.
Wow, so Abatis plays a much bigger role than just protecting individual computers or networks. It's about strengthening the entire digital fabric of Nigeria.
Precisely. And this is where that concept of cyber sovereignty we discussed earlier becomes even more relevant. By embracing locally developed solutions like Abatis, Nigeria can take control of its digital destiny, fostering a more self-reliant and resilient future.
This has been a truly eye-opening discussion. We've seen how Abatis goes beyond a mere technological solution. It's a strategic tool that aligns with the regulatory landscape, empowers organizations, and strengthens the nation's digital sovereignty.
I'm glad you see the value in that. But we haven't even touched on one of the most exciting aspects of Abatis, the power of its reporting and logs. These aren't just dry technical documents. They're a goldmine of information that can transform a bank's security operations.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Tell me more about these reports and logs. What makes them so special, and how do they contribute to a bank's overall security strategy? You mentioned they were a goldmine for security teams. Can you unpack that a bit more?
Yes.
What makes them so valuable?
Imagine you're a detective investigating a crime right now. You want every detail, every clue to piece together what happened. That's what Abatis reports and logs provide for security teams. They offer a level of visibility and insight that traditional security tools often miss.
Okay, so it's like having a security camera that not only captures the incident, but also provides a detailed timeline, a suspect description, and maybe even some fingerprints.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is that these logs are empirical, meaning they only record genuine events. There are no false alarms or confusing alerts to waste time on. This allows security teams to quickly identify patterns, track attacker behavior, and proactively strengthen their defenses.
So it's not just about reacting to incidents after they happen. It's about learning from them and preventing similar attacks in the future.
That's the key. Abatis turns a bank's SOC into a proactive intelligence hub, constantly learning and adapting to the evolving threat landscape. For example, if Abatis repeatedly blocks attempts to write a specific type of malware to a system, the bank can investigate why that malware is being targeted and strengthen their defenses accordingly.
That's fascinating. It's like Abatis is training the bank's security team to anticipate the attacker's next move, almost like a chess match.
That's a great analogy, and this level of insight can be a game changer. It allows banks to move from a reactive security posture to a more proactive and strategic one. They're no longer just chasing after the latest threats, they're anticipating them and staying one step ahead.
This all sounds incredibly powerful. But wouldn't analyzing all this data be a massive undertaking? I imagine it would require a team of experts just to sift through all those logs and reports.
That's a common misconception. One of the things that makes Abatis so unique is its Central Management Console, or CMC. It's designed to integrate seamlessly with the bank's existing SOC infrastructure, providing a user-friendly interface for monitoring security events, managing policies, and generating those insightful reports.
So it's not about adding complexity, it's about simplifying security management.
Exactly.
That's impressive.
And there's another crucial factor that often gets overlooked: cost.
Yeah,
Many banks assume that a system this advanced would come with a hefty price tag.
I was thinking the same thing. Cybersecurity solutions can be notoriously expensive.
But here's the good news. Abatis is designed to be cost-effective. Its lightweight design means it has minimal impact on system performance, reducing those ongoing operating costs. Plus, by proactively preventing threats, it can potentially save banks a fortune in incident response and recovery expenses.
So it's like investing in a high-quality security system for your home. You might spend a bit more upfront, but it could save you a fortune in the long run by preventing burglaries and losses.
Precisely. Abatis proves that robust security doesn't have to break the bank. It's an investment that pays dividends in terms of both enhanced security and financial savings.
This has been an incredibly insightful conversation. We've explored the evolving cyber threats in Nigeria, the importance of regulatory compliance, and how Abatis is changing the game with its proactive approach.
It's been a pleasure sharing this information with you. I believe that knowledge is power when it comes to cybersecurity, and I hope our listeners feel empowered to take action.
I agree. So for those listening who want to delve deeper and learn more about Abatis, where can they find more information?
The best place to start in their website, www.abatis-nigeria.com. You'll find a wealth of resources there, including white papers, case studies, and contact information.
Fantastic. I'm sure our listeners will find that incredibly helpful. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave everyone with a final thought. The cybersecurity landscape is constantly evolving, but by staying informed, embracing innovation, and working together, we can build a more secure and resilient digital future for Nigeria.
Well said. It's a collective effort. And every individual, every organization plays a role in safeguarding our digital world.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it informative and empowering. Until next time, stay safe and stay secure.